A bill to put coercive control in the criminal code has now passed the House of Commons. Bill C-332 touches on violence, threats, and other attempts to control an intimate partner. And the sponsor of that bill is with me now, New Democrat Laurel Collins, who is the member for Victoria, BC. Ms. Collins, good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Now, people might not be entirely familiar with the term coercive control, so let's start there. Can you explain it for us?
Yeah, coercive control, it's a particularly insidious form of abuse, and it's where an intimate partner controls different aspects of the person's life, and that can look like taking away their bank card, taking away their car keys or their mode of transportation. Often it involves tracking them or installing cameras to watch what they're doing. Sometimes it's controlling what they wear and what they eat. Coercive control, it is a terrible thing on its own and can have lasting impacts on people's mental health, but it is also one of the most common precursors to physical violence and also one of the most common precursors to femicide, even in situations where there's been no physical violence before that point.
So in your bill, how would this then change the kind of tools that are available to the police to combat this?
Yeah, so, I think of the example from the Nova Scotia shooter who, years before he killed people in Nova Scotia, he had a history of coercive control and intimate partner violence. He took the wheels off of his partner's, their shared car. He changed the locks on their door so she couldn't return and get her stuff when she wanted to leave. These kinds of things, changing the locks on a house that you share, or taking the tires off a car that you share, they aren't illegal in and of themselves, but they are pieces of a pattern of behavior. And police don't have the tools to intervene when it comes to coercive control. And so what we want to do is provide victims and survivors more tools to leave these kinds of situations, for support systems, whether it's frontline organizations or police, to intervene before violence occurs, and also to prevent the most tragic form of intimate partner violence. Every 6 days in Canada, a woman is killed by an intimate partner. Every 6 days. That is just a horrific statistic. And I have heard stories from hundreds of women, hundreds of families and loved ones who have witnessed the people they care about go through this, and oftentimes then lost the people they love the most.
And you've spoken about your own experience, your sister turning up at your door after her partner had taken away her cell phone, bank cards, and keys to try and prevent her from leaving. So, how does living through that experience inform the work you've done on this legislation?
Well, I'm happy to say that my sister got free from that situation and has been a big support and encouragement in putting forward this piece of legislation. She talks about how she wants young women, women and girls to know that this behavior is not acceptable, that there is a way out. And also, that we want to make sure perpetrators know that this is not acceptable. We need to raise awareness about coercive control and the damage that it does, but also that it is a red flag for further violence. And we need to make sure that we have a government that's going to tackle the systemic issues in our criminal justice system that often don't support victims and survivors of intimate partner violence.
So we have seen some other countries passing similar laws. Why do you think it's taken until now to be on the cusp of doing it here in Canada?
Yeah, the UK has this piece of legislation, Scotland, and 2 years ago the Justice Committee called on the government to criminalize coercive control. I'm disappointed that the government has waited until now to support a private member's bill instead of passing government legislation that would not only tackle criminalizing coercive control, but also talk about training for judges, talk about the funding for frontline organizations, making sure that we address some of the other issues in family law that disproportionately impact women and make it even harder for them to leave these abusive situations.
All right, so let's move forward then, because your bill would, of course, need Senate approval before becoming law. Have you been speaking with senators, and are they supportive of the bill? Are there any changes they want to see?
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of senators, and I think there's a lot of interest in the bill. My hope is that the Senate feels the urgency of this issue. Every 6 days, a woman is killed from intimate partner violence. This legislation is desperately needed. We need the Senate to look at this bill, but also to make sure it's passed. We're in a minority government, and there is a big risk of, if it doesn't move swiftly through the red chamber, that it could die on the order paper, and then we'd have to go back to step one to try and get this fix in our criminal justice system.
All right, Laurel Collins, the NDP MP for Victoria, I want to thank you for your time on this.
Thank you so much.